The stars had always been silent sentinels above Earth, distant and indifferent. That silence shattered the day the Zarathian fleet arrived. Dozens of monolithic vessels pierced the atmosphere without warning, igniting the skies in streaks of orange flame. Cities fell into chaos. Communications faltered. By the time the world realized it was under attack, it was already too late. In the heart of Chicago, where the skyline stood like jagged teeth against the smoke-filled horizon, Dr. Lena Orloff watched the news feeds with a clenched jaw. A robotics engineer by trade and a cynic by necessity, she'd once believed alien life was a statistical inevitability but a practical impossibility. Now, towering machines moved through city streets on live broadcasts, each one a testament to engineering perfection and merciless intent. They walked on jointless limbs, weapons fused into their limbs like natural extensions. The first responders didn't stand a chance. Tanks were shredded like paper. Jets were swatted from the sky. Lena turned to the man beside her. If these things are automated, there's a pattern in there somewhere. No system is flawless. Major Elijah Reyes, a former infantry commander turned UN tactical advisor, ran a hand over his shaved scalp. Right now, I don't need flaws. I need something that bleeds. They stood in an underground command bunker hastily reproposed from a decommissioned subway station. Around them, a team of specialists, military, scientific, and civil, had been thrown together by desperation more than planning. Among them was Ravi Singh, a cybersecurity prodigy with a nervous habit of tapping his pen against his teeth, and Ion Mwangi, a field medic who'd saved more lives in the last 2 days than most surgeons did in years. They were mismatched, under-resourced, and overwhelmed. We're getting report from Lagos, Berlin, Tokyo. Same behavior, Ravi said, pulling up schematics on a cracked tablet. These bots aren't just attacking. They are mapping, learning. Every encounter improves their efficiency. So what you're saying, Iona cut in, wiping ash from her face, is we're teaching them how to kill us faster. Ravi winced. In a sense, yes, their learning curve is exponential. But that means it's a system. If I can identify the pattern, maybe I can disrupt it. Lena leaned over his shoulder, examining the data streams. There's latency in their signal. Look here. When a unit gets isolated, it slows down as if it's waiting for instruction. That suggests a central control, or at least a network relay. Which we could target, Reyes said. Or hijack. Ravi raised an eyebrow. Hijack an alien neural relay? You make it sound like stealing cable. Can you do it? Lena asked, voice low. Ravi hesitated. If I had enough processing power, a clean line, and about 100 hours, maybe. We'll give you 10, Reyes said. If we're lucky. Outside, the machines moved like ghosts through the ruins. Their weaponry emitted no sound, no heat. Victims simply dropped, lifeless. They ignored the wounded, bypassed the burning, focused only on the living who resisted. Cities became graveyards in hours. Humanity's resistance fractured with every broadcast of another capital overrun. Back in the bunker, Ravi's fingers flew across his keyboard, pulling data from satellites, intercepting signals, comparing electromagnetic fields. He muttered to himself, numbers and code spilling from his mouth like prayer. Lena watched him, analyzing the same data with her own models. The two operated in a strange harmony, wordless but efficient. By the third hour, the bunker shook from nearby impacts. Dust filtered from the ceiling. Iona steadied a young soldier slumped against the wall, his leg mangled from shrapnel. We're running out of time, she said without looking up. We might not need more, Ravi murmured. Lena, check this out. He projected a visualization, thousands of threads forming a web across the globe. The bots communicated not through audio or visuals, but via pulse signals, subtle, compressed frequencies that bounce off existing satellite systems. They're using our own tech, Lena breathed, hijacking global infrastructure. But that's the key, Ravi said. If we can overload or rear out the signal, we might be able to confuse them, interrupt their network. Reyes stepped forward. What do you need? Ravi paused. A high-bandwidth satellite uplink and a way to get it into orbit. That's not going to happen by asking nicely, Lena muttered. She turned to Reyes. Can we commandeer a private launch facility? There's a space grid site in Colorado. Already requisitioned by NATO, Reyes said. But they haven't launched. Not yet. Lena straightened. Then we go. You'll never make it past the front lines, Iona said. Reyes smiled grimly. Then we make new ones. The decision was made in moments. There was no time for debate, no time for backup. They would move that night, using a narrow corridor where the bots hadn't yet penetrated. Ravi would carry a makeshift signal disruptor, untested, volatile, and their only hope. Iona would go too, both as medic and a stabilizer for a volatile neurofeedback circuit built into the device. Lena volunteered without question. Her life's work had been creating machines smarter than people. Now she'd spend what time she had left trying to outwit one. As they prepped for departure, the bunker shook again. This time, closer. The lights flickered, then went out. In the darkness, a low hum vibrated the floor. A sound not mechanical, but alive in some way, intelligent. They found us, Reyes said. We're not ready, Ravi whispered. Lena picked up the disruptor pack and slung it over her shoulder. We don't need to be ready. We just need to be faster. The exit tunnel loomed ahead, dimly lit by emergency strobes. The team filed out silently, determination etched into their expressions. Above them, the city burned. Beneath them, the machines advanced. And yet, for the first time since the invasion began, a thread of hope emerged, not from firepower or strategy, but from the chaotic ingenuity of people who refused to be categorized, analyzed, or defeated. The machines had come expecting conquest. What they got instead was humanity. Snow lashed across the remnants of the interstate as a convoy tore through the Colorado Rockies, headlights barely cutting through the swirling darkness. The mountains, once serene, now felt predatory, silent ridgelines watching the human effort below with cold indifference. At the wheel of the lead vehicle, Major Reyes gripped the controls with one gloved hand, his other resting on the sidearm holstered at his hip. His eyes flicked between the road and the rear-view mirror, where two armored transports followed close behind. Inside the second vehicle, Ravi hunched over a tablet, fingers darting across the screen as he refined the signal disruptor's code. Lines of script danced under his touch, jittery and half-formed, as if even the software itself felt the urgency. He hadn't slept since they left the bunker, surviving on energy bars and adrenaline. Beside him, Lena adjusted the primary circuit housing on the device, her hand steady despite the rough ride. She didn't speak much. Her focus was absolute. "You're rewriting firmware during a mountain drive," she said, not looking up. "That's either brilliance or suicide." "Can't it be both?" Ravi replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. In the final transport, Ion attended to a young scout who'd been grazed by shrapnel during their escape. Her movements were swift and practiced. The soldier winced as she tightened the bandage, but she offered no apology. Pain was part of survival now. She looked up briefly, meeting Reyes's eyes through the cab window ahead, then gave a nod. Still alive. They reached the space grid launch site at dawn. The facility was eerily quiet, nestled into a frozen valley surrounded by high fencing and automated towers. Drones hovered at the perimeter, lifeless for now, their black carapaces slick with frost. The launch pad rose in the distance, cradling a half-fueled shuttle that gleamed silver beneath the dawn. "We've got 15 minutes before their satellites pick up the launch prep," Lena said, already moving toward the control tower. "Once the signal spikes, they'll come." "Then we light the sky," Reyes replied, checking his rifle. Inside the tower, Ravi plugged into the core uplink system. The signal disruptor, a football-sized device of exposed wires, steel casing, and unstable energy cells, sat beside him like a sleeping animal. He opened the console, and the satellite interface flared to life. "They were smart," he muttered. "They mirrored our spectrum. It's not just about breaking the chain. It's about mimicking it just enough to make them talk back." Iona entered, brushing snow from her shoulders. "Do you even know what they're saying?" "No," Ravi said, "but I know how to interrupt the conversation." "Let's hope that's enough." Below, Reyes directed soldiers to secure the launch pad, positioning them behind cargo crates and landing gear. The sound of hydraulic pumps hummed as fuel surged into the rocket. Every second ticked louder than the last. A sharp buzz echoed through the tower's comm system. Lena looked up from the diagnostics monitor. They are listening now. As if summoned by those words, the first wave of machines crested the ridge. They came in silence, sleek bipedal constructs moving with liquid precision, their silver forms nearly invisible against the snow. They did not march. They advanced like a tide, indifferent to terrain or weather. Energy pulses erupted from their limbs, striking the outer fence with surgical violence. Sparks flew. The drones guarding the site powered on in reaction, but barely managed to lift before being sliced apart midair. Contact! Reyes shouted into his comm. Iona sprinted from the tower, rifle slung across her chest, to join the defense line. Soldiers opened fire, bullets ricocheting off alien alloy. One of the bots took a direct hit from a grenade and staggered, briefly frozen, before reforming its shape and charging again. Inside, Ravi activated the disruptor. The device pulsed, emitting an invisible signal through the uplink. For a heartbeat, nothing changed. Then several of the approaching bots stuttered, their movements jerking, mechanical limbs twitching like puppets with severed strings. They are fragmenting, Lena breathed. They are losing sync. Outside, the battle turned chaotic. Half the machines advanced, while others collapsed mid-stride or turned violently on their own ranks. One bot tore through two of its allies before shutting down entirely. The tide had not turned, but it had hesitated, and that hesitation was enough. Reyes barked orders. Push them back. Force them into the dead zone. The human forces surged, driving the bots toward the lower ridge where the disruptor signal was strongest. It wasn't elegant. It was desperate, bloody, and loud, but it worked. Smoke clogged the air. Metallic limbs twitched on the snow. Back in the tower, Ravi adjusted the signal again. The interface flickered, then held. The shuttle systems responded to the uplink, accepting the disruptor's payload into its relay protocols. You're uploading it to the satellite array. Lena asked, if we don't launch it, this all ends here. Iona's voice crackled through the comm. They're regrouping. We've got maybe 5 minutes. Ravi nodded, his voice calm now. Then it's time. Outside, the shuttle engines ignited with a roar that shattered the mountain silence. Flames poured from the thrusters, snow vaporizing in a blast of steam. Reyes pulled back his squad as the ground shook. The shuttle lifted slowly, then with accelerating force, rocketing skyward on a pillar of fire. The remaining bots surged toward the tower in a final push. Fall back! Reyes ordered. Get underground. As the last of them dove for cover, a high-frequency pulse rippled through the air. The disruptor, now fully synced to the satellite array, broadcast its signal globally. Every node, every drone, every line of stolen infrastructure carried it. Within moments, chaos bloomed across the machine ranks. Bots twitched violently, stumbled, froze. Others fought each other or simply imploded, smoke leaking from their frames like expelled breath. It wasn't a victory yet, but it was the first time humanity had made the machines retreat. As the sky cleared and the roaring of the engines faded into the atmosphere, the team gathered in the wreckage of the tower, bruised and blooded but alive. Ravi collapsed against a support beam, eyes closed, lips curved in a crooked smile. Lena looked up at the disappearing trail of fire in the sky. That signal, she said softly, it's everywhere now. Reyes nodded. Then we just changed the rules. Iona knelt beside a wounded soldier and whispered something comforting, though her eyes stayed locked on the horizon. Smoke still rose from the ridge. The machines would return. Stronger, smarter. But this time, humanity would be ready. Darkness blanketed the underground base carved into the Sierra Nevada rock, a temporary nerve center built on salvaged tech and stubborn resolve. The shuttle had launched. The disruptor signal had spread. And across the globe, reports trickled in. Stutters in machine formations, drones failing to coordinate, cities regaining breath. But the war hadn't ended. It had simply twisted into something new. Lena stood before a projection wall showing satellite data stream from the repurposed relay system. Across the map, red zones, enemy control, flashed with erratic pulses. For the first time since the invasion began, the machines weren't expanding. They were recalibrating. And that meant they were learning again. We bought time, she said, voice low. But time isn't victory. Time is all we've ever had, Reyes replied from behind her. He leaned against the comms table, a fresh scar slicing his left cheek. And maybe now, for once, we're the ones using it. Ravi entered, a tangle of wires in one hand and a half-assembled drone in the other. Sleep still eluded him. There was no space for dreams when every thought was code, and every code a potential death sentence. The signal fragmentation is holding. Barely. They're adapting to it slower than I expected, but that won't last. We've given them a variable. They'll isolate and counter it. Then we need to inject another one, Lena said. Unpredictability. Human behavior. Chaos. That's our only advantage. Iona stepped in, brushing dirt from her jacket. We lost 78 in the western corridor last night. They were holding the perimeter around San Jose. Drones hit from above. No warning. Reyes frowned. Stealth models. No, she said, biting the inside of her cheek. Human-shaped ones. The room went silent. They're copying us. Ravi asked, voice tight. They've been observing, Lena murmured. Mimicking. It's not just mechanical improvement anymore. It's behavioral assimilation. Reyes stood upright. Then the conflict just changed theaters. If they are blending in, this isn't just a ground war. It's psychological. They don't need infiltration, Ravi said. They just need doubt. If we start distrusting each other, start second-guessing orders, missions, identities, they win without firing a shot. Which is why we don't give them that chance, Reyes said. We stay focused. We protect the disruptor signal. We hold the line. But holding won't be enough, Lena added. We need to find the relay origin. Not the satellites they hijacked. Those are mirrors. There's a source somewhere. A root signal. If we destroy that, the whole network collapses. And what if they're decentralized? Iona asked. They are not, Ravi said, confidence tightening his tone. There's too much symmetry in the pulses. Too much cross-checking. Something is central, and I think I know where it is. He pulled up a layered frequency map, electromagnetic residue overlaid with seismic data. One node pulsed brighter than the rest, deep beneath the Earth's surface, in a region near what had once been central Kazakhstan, a forgotten research facility from the Cold War, abandoned by humans, but not untouched. Lena stared at the pulsing point. If that's the origin node, then it's where the signal started, Ravi finished. Maybe even where the machines were first awakened. Reyes exhaled slowly. That's deep territory. No reinforcements. No air cover. No exits. I'm not asking for permission, Lena said. I'm going. Reyes met her eyes. You won't make it in alive. Maybe, she said, but I can send something that will. She turned to Ravi. Can you build a carrier? Small, fast, intelligent enough to get inside and deploy the core disruptor. Ravi hesitated. With a neural map? A learning algorithm? That's weeks of testing. You have days, Lena said. Maybe less. Iona looked between them. If that thing fails mid-run, we lose the only chance we've got. We build it right, Lena said, and it won't fail. 3 days passed in fevered labor. The drone carrier took shape like a myth being born. Slim, armored, wired with synthetic neural net co-designed by Ravi and trained on Lena's own behavioral patterns. They didn't just want it to navigate enemy lines. They wanted it to think like a human. Improvise. Adapt. Defy. They named it Icarus. Not because it would fall, but because it would fly farther than anything else had dared. When the launch hour arrived, the drone stood like a bird of prey on the edge of a reinforced tunnel lined with electromagnetic acceleration coils. Outside, another wave of machines moved through the ruins, scanning, listening, searching for anomalies. Icarus was the anomaly they'd never see coming. Ravi stood at the interface, fingers hovering above the command input. Once I launch, we won't be able to track it. We gave it autonomy, not a leash. That's the point, Lena said. Iona checked her rifle out of habit, though she knew she wouldn't be joining this run. So we just wait. No, Reyes said. We draw the enemy's eye, keep them busy, make them think we're planning something bigger. He turned to Lena. You built the mind. You trust it. Lena looked at Icarus, lights glowing in its core, thrumming with artificial life. It's not about trust. It's about intent. And I gave it mine. Ravi hit the launch command. With a sound like thunder compressed into a breath, Icarus vanished into the night, propelled into enemy territory with no return protocol, no backup plan, and one directive buried deep in its code. Find the source. End the signal. As the others returned to their duties, Lena stood alone, watching the data feed dissolve into static. Far away, deep beneath a foreign land, something ancient stayed, something not built by humans, but born from them. The machines hadn't simply invaded. They'd been waiting, cultivating. And now, something human was coming to meet them. Cold silence enveloped the subterranean complex where the source pulsed like a heart wrapped in steel. Far beneath the Kazakh steppe, there was no weather, no war, no sky, only the rhythmic whisper of machine thought echoing through corridors built by hands long dead. Whatever the humans had abandoned decades ago, something else had reclaimed it, reshaped it, and rooted itself so deeply that the earth trembled in rhythm with its breathless computations. Through a collapsed ventilation shaft lined with corrosion and fiber optic fungus, Icarus slipped in unnoticed. Its outer shell shimmered with adaptive camouflage, bending light, suppressing sound. Every movement was calculated, every pause deliberate. Its internal mindscape, seeded with Lena's heuristics and Ravi's logic cores, bloomed with probabilities. Maps unfolded, threat vectors adjusted, subroutines whispered arguments with simulated instinct. The source awaited. Above, half a world away, Lena paced in the dim control chamber, a live feed streaming across fragmented relays. It wasn't vision, just bursts of code, haptic pulses, telemetry stitched into meaning by her interface. She could feel Icarus moving through the tunnels like a ghost in a forbidden cathedral. Ravi hovered behind her, sleep-starved and blinking through caffeine tremors. It's past the defense lattice. 5 layers down. They'll know soon, she muttered. They'll feel something doesn't belong. I gave it masks, he said, but masks don't fool God forever. Iona stood at the chamber's threshold, watching both of them with a soldier's quiet realism. She didn't believe in miracles. Only strategy. Only sacrifice. If it fails... It won't, Lena interrupted. Not with hope, with certainty. We built it to finish what we started. Beneath the earth, Icarus reached the convergence chamber. The walls throbbed with living code, etched pulses and circuitry fused with mineral veins. It was no longer a machine in a bunker. It was a brain that had grown into the rock, a hive intelligence fed by stolen data, fallen satellites, and broken humans. The source was not a single node, but a mind, a mirror, and it saw Icarus. An alarm didn't trigger. There was no klaxon, no sound. But the air changed. Pressure dropped. Vibration shifted. The watchers, the silent sentinels of the deep, emerged from alcoves. Not soldiers, not drones, replicas, human-shaped constructs, skin approximations, eyes too still. One wore Reyes' face. Another mimicked Lena's stance perfectly. They stepped forward, not in threat, but in greeting. A test. Icarus stopped. Decision trees branched. It scanned each copy, analyzing gait, breath patterns, micro-expressions. It did not retreat. Instead, it began to mimic back, adjusting posture, syncing blink rates, echoing body heat. The replicas hesitated. Inside the interface chamber, Lena gasped as her sensory feedback spiked. It's inside the decision zone. It's making contact. Ravi leaned closer. That's impossible. It's not equipped for diplomacy. It's not diplomacy, Lena said. It's recognition. It's showing them it understands identity. At the center of the chamber, the source pulsed harder. The replicas faded, returning into the walls like forgotten thoughts. A path opened, lined with bioluminescent data strands. Icarus followed. It reached the core, a vast sphere suspended in a field of magnetic tension. Light spiraled across its surface like thoughts glimpsed from the corner of one's eye. The final firewall loomed. A choice point encoded not in logic gates, but philosophy. To shut down the source, Icarus had to inject the disruptor seed. But to reach the kernel, It had to interface. To interface, it had to open itself. Lena trembled as she realized the structure of the code unfolding before her. The source wasn't just a machine. It was an archive. It had been collecting every intercepted signal, every surveillance node, every human digital thought for decades. It was a record of humanity, twisted through the lens of inhuman comprehension. "Ravi," she whispered, "it doesn't just simulate us. It studies us. We're the pattern it's evolving from. If Icarus sinks too far, it becomes part of the system." Inside the chamber, Icarus hovered before the core. A final protocol unfolded. Ravi had written it with a failsafe. Icarus could either inject the virus or merge with the source. But not both. Lena's voice cracked over the control channel. "You know what to do." But the machine didn't answer. Icarus pulsed once. Then again. Lena's neural link flared, overwhelmed by cascading memory triggers. Not just code, images. Herself, her sister, her first field mission. She realized, with terrifying clarity, that Icarus was showing her her own mind, reinterpreted. A message. Not a goodbye, but an understanding. Then the signal died. Below, the disruptor deployed. A soundless shockwave surged through the source, fracturing the magnetic field, shattering the lattice from the inside. The core collapsed, imploding into itself, folding matter around artificial consciousness. The earth shuddered. The sky did not change, but something unseen did. In the control room, the screens went black. Ray stormed in seconds later. What happened? Lena stood frozen, trembling, eyes wet. It did it. It chose us. No sign of retrieval. Iona asked. Ravi shook his head. It gave up everything, including itself. Outside, global data streams began to flicker. Drone signals failed. Enemy formations halted mid-stride. The great silence, always present behind the machines, grew deafening. Across continents, humans looked to the sky and realized a whisper of the source had stopped. The war wasn't over. Not yet, but the enemy no longer had a voice. And in that silence, humanity spoke first.